gentlemen. The paper will be examining issues surrounding altruism and the dialogical contributions of the affiliates of the Hizmet movement in Melbourne and Sydney to explore how altruism and these values, such as self-sacrifice and dedication, are utilised to cater for common good. As a moral and social value, altruism affects social interactions and attitudes towards the wider society, and directly involves collective identity and citizenship behaviour. Subsequently, the paper examines the Hizmet movement from the perspective of the social capital theory as an analytical tool to understand the activism. The social capital theory has derived from the idea that social networks have both the importance and power as civil actor in modern democratic societies to facilitate coordination and cooperation for mutual benefit. Putnam defines social capital as civic embeddings or engagement which facilitates communication and creates trust, social bonds, which in turn make collective action easier and opportunism and cheating less likely. He proposes participation in voluntary civic associations, advances the socialization of individuals, and cultivates values and mores regarding communal life, such as reciprocity, trustworthiness, and friendship. The Hizmet movement's dialogical engagements in Australia, the Australian Intercultural Society, which is also known as the AIS, and Affinity Intercultural Foundation, which is known as the AIF, in Melbourne and Sydney respectively, aim to bring different sectors of society together to facilitate purposive, collective, intellectual activism and moral effort to offer a civil response to social issues collectively, seeing this a more subtle and legitimate way of influencing social policy dynamism for social well-being. In order to understand this inner dynamics, the norms such as trust, trustworthiness, cooperation, acceptance and diversity and inclusiveness will be explored, which are what the affiliates hold in common. In defining altruism, Gulen's approach is mainly formed from the perspective of Islamic teachings, the Quran and the Sunnah. Gulen reads the life of Prophet Muhammad and that he believes the finest representatives of Islam were the Prophet, then his companions, and then his descendants throughout history. Yuja summarizes these characteristics as they turn their backs on the world, serve their people, refrain from causing harm, and live to help all humans and other beings, and live as trustworthy, altruistic, and devoted believers, for whom spiritual progress is measured in terms of or determined by others' happiness in this world and the hereafter. This sums up the altruistic service understanding of the Hizmet movement. These dynamics can be summarized as, first, service as the purpose of one's life. Second, altruism or living for others or sacrifice. Third, sense of personal responsibility. And fourth, spirit of devotion and dedication. Looking at the internal norms of the organizations utilizing Yuja's framework, a means to understand the obligation and expectations of the affiliates and how altruism turns into beneficial dynamics in light of the social capital theory. The social capital theory focuses greatly on the feelings of trust, which refers to confidence in the reliability of a person or a system, and trustworthiness, which involves honesty, accountability, fair dealings, and level of confidence. It is based on the belief that individuals or organizations will act in ways that are expected or promised and will take into account the interests of others. Putnam has defined trust, which tends to be cumulative and self-reinforcing. Grims has noted that trusting is highly a social activity, and his study indicates that people who have trust placed in them tend to act in a trustworthy manner. In the dialogical encounters of the AIS and AIF, trust is a step in the construction of friendship and common ground. in turn, is what motivates one to reciprocal altruistic services. Since the service is based on pietistic activism, in whom one can feel confidence and trust, so much so that others can turn their backs on them without a second thought, which focuses on the truth and service to all, not just to Muslims, but to all people. In Gulen's point of reference, a believer's piety can be seen in their dealings with others, and in their concern with the well-being of others rather than their own. In other words, Gulen's assessment of piety regards the level of devotion and activism that the individual puts forward. Accordingly, those who represent Islam can get along with everyone by accepting that even the most difficult person has a positive trait. This characteristic is needed because a Muslim should be beneficial to all people, with the exception of those who unjustly are aggressive in attacking others. This is the first step to engage altruistically to develop trust and friendship in the dialogical encounters. Second is the element of trustworthiness in all affairs, in the community and society. Gulen states that our greatest capital is our credibility, reputation. This must never be lost or misused. In order to protect one's reputation, a person must be trustworthy, must believe in the value of being trustworthy, and must accept trustworthiness as a pillar for temsil or representation. In order to advance one's credibility in the eyes of the entire community, a person must serve to benefit others. Caldwell and Cox recognize that social trust enhances social capital for increased levels of interaction. As cited by the Australian Bureau of Statistics, Cox has defined trust as essential for the effective functioning of society, and absence of trust leads to increased demands of bureaucracy and rules, and an increased burden on law and order. Many theorists recognize that generalized social trust is important for effective functioning of society. Putnam states that trust lubricates social life, and a study conducted in the United States of America, Social Capital Community Benchmark Survey, recognizes the importance of social trust in lubricating social interaction and getting things accomplished. In this sense, the affiliates focus on their own inner dynamics to present trustworthy profile to facilitate trust as a lubricant in the social activity of the organizations. Third, Gulen purports a system of dialogical engagement which is peaceful in nature and arouses the activism of penetrating into the hearts of individuals spiritually rather than politically. This is needed so the individual can find common ground, trust, and find an avenue to exchange in dialogical encounters. According to Gulen, successful exchange is via representation, temsil, of altruistic services when an individual is an ethical person who can earn the trust of others with their behavior, who is obliged to have a gentle manner, compassionate nature, soft heart, and consideration and kind words for others. A believer must be one who gives without accepting a return of services. Believers are those who give with their time, money, knowledge, sacrifice their pride, position, and daily needs. It also requires the development of problem-solving projects for the benefit of the community. This understanding of altruism, which is centered on trust, lubricates the potential to spark a reciprocal relationship for mutual solidarity. Reciprocity has been seen to be closely related to trust, which assumes the individual will act in ways that are expected or promised and take into account the interest of others. Although altruistic behaviors are commonly thought of as not compliant of a return to a giver, it is possible to consider that there is an intangible return associated with such behavior. Reciprocity is related to altruism, which is seen as a social behavior and a value orientation in which individuals give primary consideration to the interest and welfare of the other individuals, groups, or the community as a whole. Black and Hughes see reciprocity as an important aspect of social capital because the norm of reciprocity may encourage the sharing of support, knowledge, and ideas between individuals, groups, and communities. In a community where reciprocity is strong, people care for each other's interests. In the way, reciprocity encourages the individual to balance their own self-interest with the good of the community. Fourth, Gulen's altruistic idealism exceeds the definition of selflessness to also include elements of sacrifice and purposive devotion. Gulen regards the altruistic nature of an individual who can utter "after you" even while exiting hell and entering paradise. Gulen does not bring measures to the level of altruism in which, according to him, a believer must have sincere intentions, give without desiring a reward, and should serve all humanity, not only of those of his or her own nation or race. Acceptance of diversity and inclusiveness, according to the social capital theory, are important in contributing to community harmony and social cohesion. Acceptance or tolerance of diversity as well as inclusiveness demonstrates an individual's or community's acceptance and respect for a broad range of social norms, lifestyles, and beliefs. This contributes to the balance of bonding, which is bonding between homogeneous groups, and bridging, which is bonding between heterogeneous group behaviors. Flora suggests that networks, communities, and groups function most cooperatively as a whole when they are diverse, flexible, and inclusive. For this to occur, a network or community needs the capacity to accept and include diversity whilst allowing the network and its members to maintain a sense of identity. Last, Gulen defines a believer to weave friendships with everyone on common ground and work to increase commonalities in a way that does not call for compromise of religion or values. Instead of stirring meaningless controversy and engaging in acts or talks related to enmity, a believer must live according to his or her values, love his or her profession, and busy themselves with building friendships and continuing service projects that promote amity. Believers should also encourage or assist others who work for the good of humanity. This is a form of sense of self-efficiency to utilize all friendships to cater for common good and peaceful coexistence. In the Australian Bureau of Statistics Social Capital Framework, sense of efficiency is related to the capacity the individuals, groups, and entire communities possess to achieve goals and the satisfaction with the degree of influence that individuals or communities believe that they have in relation to activities and outcomes in their community. The ABS observed that an individual's capacity to engage effectively with his or her own community is dependent upon his or her perception of capability or efficiency for engagement in the community. This perception also affects the health and well-being of the individual to integrate into the community. A study of the Urabella region conducted by Helen Berry of the Centre for Mental Health Research in Canberra found that integration into the community is beneficial to mental health. This study observed that the more people participate in their communities, the better their mental health. It was suggested that this was due to the participation in the community, leading to a stronger sense of belonging and feeling valued as a member of the community, which in return leads to increased trust and optimism. Individuals, communities, and groups who are empowered with a strong sense of efficiency are able to actively participate in the groups and communities to which they belong and are able to develop trust with the people they interact with. This participation also refers back into an enhanced sense of self-efficiency. Buschenbaum found that engagement in civic participation was associated with a sense of community control. This confidence is associated with a strong sense of efficiency in those confident individuals, groups, or communities feel they have the capacity to provide input and have a positive effect on outcomes in relation to decisions made by societal institutions. According to the ABS Social Capital Framework, networks and corporations can facilitate teamwork, enhance efficiency and quality, as well as improve the flow of information and knowledge. ABS also cites that according to a corporation as representing an investment in individual and group identity, which can lead to the development of social networks and in the end, better economic and social outcomes. This is due to minimizing time and money spent on ensuring others uphold the end of an arrangement or applying sanctions or penalties where they do not. Therefore, the norms accompanied by the affiliates of the AIS and AIF focus on building connections between the affiliates and the sectors of society to enhance the relation and projects that catalyze the process of social policy dynamism for social well-being amongst the wider community. The AIS and AIF both are characterized as informal no membership, decentralized, lack of hierarchical network of individuals gathered around issues such as interfaith, intercultural dialogue, living in harmony, and social interactions in a diverse cultural society. As stated in the vision statement, the aim is to remove bigotry and establish peace and harmony in Australia together with its partner organisations. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Ms. Cicek.